All right, let's call to order the Reno Transportation Commission meeting for Friday, September 15th. Ms. Marilyn,
They're
let's start with a
working.
roll call.
Tracy Larkin Thompson. Here. Alexis Hill.
Here.
Ed Lawson.
Here?
Bill Thomas.
Here.
Mary Luz Garcia.
Here.
Adam Spear.
Here.
Thank you. We have a roll call. We have a quorum.
We have a roll call, too. All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Will you lead us, Ms. Hill?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chairman. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public comment. I have two cards. Amanda Nelson, followed by Lori Rodriguez.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Nelson. So I was here last month and I had spoken about possibly offering free rides instead of charging people. And so I had a few other ideas that I wanted to bring to the table. Instead of maybe doing free rides for all, possibly we could work with the lower income families and get them bus passes. Maybe if you have food stamps, I was looking at the price of bus passes, and if you're not senior or disabled, it's $65 a month. And for a family of four, you're looking at $200 a month just in bus passes to get to school or to work. And a lot of families are really struggling, and I see it every single day when people get on the buses and they don't have the fare, or they're paying with pennies, something they found from the couch, and it breaks my heart. They need to get to their jobs, they need to get to doctor's appointments. Elderly maybe can't afford it, they're on Social Security or disability. Students also, I feel like maybe we could send them down to the customer service and just get them a plastic bus pass so they can get to school and have that accommodation so they can get where they need to go. And also, I had another topic. I'm not sure if it's RTC board who I speak to about this, but I would like to see the seats in the bus be exchanged for plastic seats. They're currently fabric, and they get dirty, and I've seen a couple other transit agencies when I've been on vacations, they have plastic seats. They can go in and hose them out, and sometimes we have people who make messes on the seats and whatnot, and I feel like if they were all just plastic, they could just be sanitized and done. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Rodriguez?
Good morning, Lori Rodriguez for the record. I've been coming to these meetings for over 8 years now. In that time, the disabled community have been consistently coming to inform you of issues that they face and apparently are not always being resolved at a lower level. The problem is they are confined to 3 minutes. I can't tell you how often I've seen Dora or Juan cut off, sometimes rudely. You forget they cannot physically see the clock. They are truly not coming here to speak at you, but to hopefully speak with you. In light of this, I would like to propose this board create a permanent spot on the agenda for our disabled community. Of course, there would have to be guidelines, as there are for all agenda items. This might add 10 minutes to the meetings, but it would give the disabled community that depends entirely on public transportation a chance for discussion, a chance for them to ask and respond to questions, and for all of you to ask and respond to questions. I think we can all spare an additional 10 minutes a month to recognize and listen to a community that frankly we tend to ignore because it makes us uncomfortable. This board has repeatedly said you want to be different from all the past boards. I think this would be a great opportunity for our board to be one of the few in the country, if not the first, to have a dedicated agenda item for our disabled community. And I would like to see this board be brave enough to make that first step to start moving forward with change. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. All right. Anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the dais. We'll move on to number 3, approval of the agenda. Anyone wishing to pull an item?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent items. Anyone wishing to pull a consent item? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Discussions and presentations, 5.1. Approve a statement of purpose and procedures to the Citizen Multimodal Advisory Committee, CMAC.
Morning, members of the commission. Dan Denges, Director of Planning for the record. So you have an item before you today to approve revised statement of purpose and procedures for the Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee. This is actually really in response to a requirement of recent legislation with AB 214, and that was passed this last legislative session, requires RTC to create an advisory committee to provide information and advice concerning construction, installation, maintenance of benches, shelters, and transit stops. And this committee must include at least 2 members who are employees of companies that RTC contracts with to operate the public transit system. So this would be for our ride and access services. And so rather than create entirely new committee, it was decided internally that we would incorporate these new members into our existing Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee and essentially have those employees, they're going to be recommended by our contractors, Keolis and NTM. And in fact, I believe they've already kind of selected their designees. In these committees, each members are going to serve a 1-year term. Currently, our CMAC members serve up to a 3-year term, and they can do those 2 consecutive terms. So we're proposing a revision to the bylaw or the procedures that would kind of make it an even playing field for everyone to do a 1-year term, and they could serve up to 6 years at their discretion. So staff is recommending to incorporate the duties of this required committee through AB 214 into our existing CMAC. And there will be a separate future action before you to appoint those 2 new committee members to satisfy those requirements. That's pretty much it in a nutshell, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those.
How many members on the board?
Currently, there are 15 resident members, so with the addition of the 2 new ones, there would be 17.
And are they staggered?
Right now, their terms are staggered, but in order to comply with the new legislation, they'll be just 1-year terms across the board for everyone.
My concern is you get a wholesale change in 1 year.
Yeah, we just speaking historically from experience, the members that we currently have and have had in the past have been really passionate to serve on this committee. Most of the members in my tenure here at RTC have opted to serve not only 1 3-year term, but 2 consecutive 3-year terms. And that is a valid concern, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you. However, just knowing the type of people that have an interest in this committee and kind of the track record, most have served out their entire term.
I guess the question is, does the period start new? So those people that have been on there for a while would start with a new 6 years?
Yes, yeah,
Have the potential at the end of 6 years, you're gonna change out the entire board.
that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that works for me. I think somehow we gotta figure out how to have
Stagger 'em.
yeah, you gotta have a stagger. Because if you don't have the walking around knowledge in the board, you're completely starting over. I just don't see how that works.
Mr. Mayor, I may add, I believe, and Dan, not to correct you, but the idea would be that people that have served, say, for 3 years would have 3 more years.
Okay.
And so they would be able to be reappointed for, 3 one-year terms. So there will be staggering that way. And
Was it the state that told us we have to do it every year?
yes, AB 214 specifies that the terms of members of the committee have to be 1 year.
Bad idea.
Well, but I don't think that they knew that we were going to incorporate it in a current board form, and change the CMAC board. I think they thought we were creating our own, correct, Bill?
I can add
Okay.
to that as well. The legislation specifies expressly that you can combine the duties of this committee with an existing committee, with the
Okay.
idea being it'd be more efficient and effective from an administrative resources standpoint. And so it was expected. There's some things that we can do, I think, practically to address this issue, to try to minimize those type of impacts, but the procedures are lined up with the legislation, which is 1-year terms appointed by the board. But there are no term limits, but we've said up to 6 years to keep
That changed.
consistent with
I
current
can see
practice
it.
on the committee.
15 people changing over in 1 year. I'd see that's a real possibility.
Another fun thing for us to do next session.
I guess in the interim, we'll do what the law says, but we need to change it. I can see it happening, you get a 15, 12, or 15 people that come off. You got 12 or 15 people that are new. I'm the only one standing, I'm the only one with knowledge. I control the board now. And that's not the way the board should work.
In line with the conversation about succession, are there any bylaws or anything written currently for this particular board that would address succession and be a little bit more proactive and preventative from that happening?
So we do have some existing bylaws for the current committee as it's structured today. And those are, I apologize if those weren't included in your packet, but they are on our RTC website. Every member gets a copy of that when they start, or a link to that. Yeah, and so really what's included in your packet today is kind of the reformatted structure. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
The bylaw exists.
yes,
Okay.
it does.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering, that is a great idea, Commissioner Garcia, because I think that I've seen other committees where you built in staggering terms into the bylaws. So perhaps we can add that for the consideration. Approve this today and then have you bring it back to us in October for that change.
Our ability to do that will be limited, given the legislation that was adopted. It's pretty prescriptive in terms of the 1-year terms, but I think what we might be able to do is bring back some practical approaches outside of what's included in these, rules and procedures that would address the concerns of the board.
I think, if I can, just practically speaking, to jump on what Adam's saying, I mean, we can certainly, when we get new members, we can tell them that it's a 3-year assignment that they're taking and that we're going to present to you every year.
Their
name
names.
for 3 years. So it's not like reapplying every year, and maybe that's a way we can.
Not in the spirit of the legislation?
I believe it would be, yeah. And I think that's part of the reason that we included the 6-year period of terms. The idea is that we do want longstanding members and we do want them to serve up to 6 years and continue to serve. It's just the strict requirements of the bill and having to have an appointment for just 1-year terms every year.
But I think that I've seen in other bylaws that you can allow for certain members to, depending on the staggering of terms, to serve a longer term in order to fulfill this concern, to serve an 8-year term. So I don't know if that's something we should consider or if staff has thoughts on that.
Why don't we revisit this? And we'll bring it back next time with the appointments of the 2 new members. So we'll have it at your October meeting.
Okay. it's not too late.
We need some more clarification on how much leeway we have to continue to stagger. The stagger is what makes it all work. I mean, if we had all new politicians elected every year, that would be,
Fun.
that would really be a lot of fun.
Is this time sensitive for,
I don't believe it is. I would defer to our legal counsel.
I do not believe it is, no. I think bringing it back next month would be fine from a timing standpoint.
I'm supportive of that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, give me a motion and let's move on.
I move to table item number 5.1 to the next meeting.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Dan. Report 6.1, monthly verbal update message from RTC Director Bill Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Lawson. I want to start my comments today by very proudly announcing our engineering team, and this is a project we worked very closely with NDOT on, received the Engineering News Record Southwest Award of Merit. And this is a national firm, or a national organization, so it certainly is one of significance. This award was for the diverging diamond interchange that was part of the Lemon Drive Phase 1 project, which was completed last year. A panel of judges reviewed over 80 entries in a variety of categories. They looked at factors like safety, innovation, craft quality, and benefit to the community and industry. You might recall also that this project won the American Society of Engineers Project of the Year Award for Northern Nevada in 2022. So just another example of our peers recognizing the quality of this project that, again, was delivered both by RTC staff and also NDOT. We worked very collaboratively with NDOT to provide that great project. So I wanted to acknowledge that starting off this morning. On Saturday, we implemented our latest transit service changes. We made improvements on 8 routes and the regional connector based on our Transportation Optimization Plan and Strategies, otherwise known as TOPS, recommendations. Those recommendations adjusted segment run times, removal of time points, additional buses and trips, increased headways, and changed routing. We know these changes will take some getting used to, but we hope that our passengers will like the improvements in the long run. We will gradually implement more changes over the next 4 years as we move to implement the findings of the TOPS plan. RTC published its updated program management plan for public comment earlier this week. This plan reflects a change to our federal what's entitled Section 5310 funding. And this FTA funding is to support transportation of older adults or people with disabilities. In the last year, we particularly focused on non-emergency medical trips and Lyft vouchers. Once approved, the RTC will retain this funding and replace it with local tax dollars, giving it more flexibility to our subrecipients to better suit their needs without necessarily the constraints of the federal restrictions. So ultimately, it'll allow us to provide better service to those particular people in the community that qualify. Currently, access to Healthcare Network, Neighborhood Network of Northern Nevada, UNR's Senior Outreach Services Program, and Volunteers of America all are supported by this funding. Last week, we held a blue ribbon cutting for the Holcomb Avenue Rehabilitation Project. Staff from the City of Reno, RTC, Granite Construction, and Wood Rogers were on hand. This project is a model for our pavement preservation program. This program helps the pavement last longer, but also allows us to make some important safety, multimodal, and ADA improvements as we're working in a particular area. We're planning another one of these for the 4th and Woodland Roundabout, which hopefully will be ready early next month. Wanted to make some staff announcements. I would like the board to join me in wishing 3 of our colleagues the best as they retire. We have 3 RTC members retiring: Heinz Schoner, Sharon Britt, and Michael DeLude. Heinz is calling it going into retirement after a career at RTC of more than 28 years. So Heinz has definitely been contributing to our organization for a long time. He's our maintenance specialist, and his last day is October 12th. Sharon was our senior financial analyst. She's been a vital part of our agency for over 22 years. Her last day was actually yesterday. And lastly, Michael DeLude is has retired again after almost 9 years here at RTC. He served as our Senior Technical Transit Operations Planner, and his last day also was yesterday. And then one last announcement. I wanted to acknowledge and say goodbye to one of our valued members of the leadership team. Dan Dunges has decided he's going to move on to work in the private sector, so he announced his resignation as of the end of this month. He's going to work with one of the local firms in the transit business. We will miss Dan. And Dan has been with RTC since 2016, the last 2 years as the Director of Planning. And he's had a lot of involvement in many of the corridor studies and other special studies that we've done, including development of the most recent RTIP and the RTP. His last day, as I mentioned, will be September 29th. We'll miss you, Dan, but wish you luck in your new career. Congratulations to Christian Schonlau and his wife, Jenna. I think we're going to put it up. There it is. There he is. I shouldn't say it. They welcomed their son Hunter into the world Monday morning. Hunter was born weighing 8 pounds, 2 ounces, and 21 1/4 inches long. Christian says everyone is happy and healthy, and Hunter is their second child, joining his bigger brother Blake. So congratulations to Christian and his family. I'd also like to congratulate the Keolis Driver of the Month, Gonzala Pep Monteleone. Pep has been working as a bus operator for RTC Rides since May of 1999. He's also a shop steward for Teamsters 533. Pep's on-time performance was 95% with 0 accidents in August. He provides excellent customer service and hasn't had a customer complaint in more than 2 years. On his free time, Pep enjoys riding his bicycle, watching sports, and traveling to Las Vegas. So we want to congratulate you, Pep, and thank you for all you've done for our community and for RTC. In addition, I want to congratulate Burnaby Marquez as the MTM Employee of the Month. Burnaby has been part of the MTM transit team for more than a year. His passengers give him many compliments. He likes meeting people and being out and about, so the job is actually a great fit for him. He's very active in the company's safety program, so he's always looking for ways to improve the service and enhance safety. Outside of work, he enjoys doing gardening and do-it-yourself projects, and he has 2 children. One of them, which he proudly shares with us, is in medical school, and the other is an engineer. So, again, thank you very much for your contributions, Burnaby, to our community. That concludes my presentation today.
Thank you, sir. Monthly verbal update from Paul Nelson. The volume went up.
Good morning. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto is sponsoring a bill in the Senate that would provide more funding for transit hubs and airports to crack down on human trafficking. These are places where victims often have a chance to seek help, so a key part of this bill would be to provide funding to really focus on prevention and awareness among staff. We're also looking at different outreach opportunities that we can participate in. We're also asking the senators to support the Transit Emergency Relief Act, and that would provide transit agencies with funding faster in the case of natural disaster. Congress is back in session from their August recess, and they have until September 30th to either come up with an agreement on the 12 spending bills or provide a continuing resolution. Otherwise, they will face a government shutdown. The odds of a shutdown appear to be higher this year because of a few things. There's a slim majority of Republicans in the House, and the Speaker is vulnerable, and the influence of far-right Republicans are using a shutdown as leverage for budget limits and culture issues. The Senate THUD bill would provide about $2.5 billion for capital investments grants, and that's about $250,000 more than the current fiscal year. It includes continued funding for grants for highways and bridges. The bill would also streamline property acquisitions for things like bus facilities by aligning FTA and FHWA rules, and it encourages the FTA to work with agencies when it comes to cost adjustments on some of their project impacts. In the House's bill, transit formula funds match the IIJA reauthorization levels of almost $14 billion. The good news is agencies would be less likely to lose any formula funding, But the bad news is that the bill would impose cuts to transportation discretionary funding. Now, there's a lot of politics that are at play here, so it's kind of a wait and see to see what the two sides come up with. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions from the? Okay. Thanks, Paul. A monthly verbal update, message from NDOT Director Tracy Lockard Thomason.
Well, good morning, everybody. We need to go back a little bit.
Is your mic
Couple
on,
slides.
Tracy?
It's on. Can we go back a couple slides? I do need to go back a couple slides. All right, well, you guys know my name now. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to advance. All right, I want to start off by saying, one of you have worked with our district engineer, Mike Feast, and he is out for temporarily away from the position. I just wanted to say that in his place as acting district engineer is Boo Pinder, more commonly known as Boo, B-H-U, Sandhu, and he'll be around, he's the one to call right now. I think most of you have his number, just call the district. And he's a real go-getter and very jovial, so a lot of, easy to work with. I also wanted to point out, that some of these are just kind of letting you know some of the things that we work on, and particularly since next year is an election year, presidential election year, one where we often get a lot of visits. This is not an easy thing for on there. So when President Biden came out a few weeks ago, there was 4 trips basically from the airport up to South Lake Tahoe. Where he went up there, then came back down to the airport, flew out to Hawaii, came back, and then went back up there. So with this thing, it takes about 75 vehicles and volunteers to cut off for the efforts, to cut off as physical barriers for the motorcade. And it took up like 150 hours of planning and 1,700 hours of NDOT time. So I'm saying every time they come, there is a lot of behind-the-scenes impact. We do track it, but I will say we do not get reimbursed. We were putting up a new avalanche control center. It's a system called GASX up on Mount Rose. We currently have one that was put up basically 21 years ago. It's hitting at the end of its life cycle. This is really critical for when conditions warrant. We like to do planned avalanche control as opposed to you having an unplanned activity up there. So you'll be seeing over the next month, it actually started last week, some brief but periodic just interruptions in traffic while we get that in session before winter comes. And I have to admit, it's really fun to push that button and boom. For the Pyramid Highway, most of you know this is up there. It has started this way from Queenway. So basically you can see on the schedule coming forward, it's moving along very well on schedule. It will still on target to meet its completion date of next year of October. And we're now at the Los Altos to the Golden View Drive area. And then we also wanted to say is we are, obviously, everyone is very concerned about the traffic between I-80, between Sparks going out to, Reno Sparks, the whole area going out to Trick. And so one of the things we are looking at is we are doing a feasibility study, basically alignment feasibility study, coming from the South Meadows area there. You can see where the start and finish. It's a little hard to see on the map, but it will basically take about 18 to 24 months to do it, but we're looking at a alignment. There's 3 different alignments that have been proposed. It is about a $3 million study, but at this point, it's just to determine what are really feasible alternatives. What really, and then to kind of fine tune what the costs are. At this point, it is estimated at about $900 million to go out there. That could change depending on some ownership of the land, if it, dedication of some private land. And then also the amount, basically based on the alignment, the amount of structures, et cetera. But that is going on, it has been initiated, and so it'll start at the end of the year. And then in the next one, we are just saying that at the end of this month, we are doing a public service study. This is basically at the east shore up at Lake Tahoe, looking at the work, I guess actually this fall a little bit out of your area, but you should know this anyway. So, on the East Shore, we have looking at a survey that's out there, just asking about some things about enforcement and other ways to actually manage the traffic on the roadway, and also some pilot studies to just look at different configurations. Next slide. We have also finalized a policy for honoring officers and basically fallen first responders who have died in the duty on our highways. So we are just acknowledging that these 5, we just had the signs put up recently honoring them, and it was kind of fitting that we honored them actually on 9/11 earlier this week. So there is, when the tragedy happens, basically, if the law enforcement agency or the first responder agency needs to just approach us or the family to bring it to our attention. Next slide. That's it.
Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions from the commission? Okay. I'm looking now, any commissioner announcements or updates or direction? Yes, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering, speaking to Ms. Nelson's concerns on public comment, does the CMAQ look at our voucher program as well? Is that one of their assignments that they bring to this board, or is that initiated by the RTC?
Hi, Commissioner Hale, Dan Den. Just for the record, that is not something we generally bring to the commission. Under this new structure, I would imagine that could be included as part of something for them to look at. But they typically, both our Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee and our Technical Advisory Committee review a lot of items that are presented to this board kind of in advance to give any direction or recommendations.
Well, perhaps that's something that they could do, and then we could present on the current program and, thoughts that they have for this board to consider, because I think that those are valid concerns that were brought to us. And then at a board meeting earlier this week, there was accusations that RTC is committing less funding and is running fewer buses, and I think this board knows that's not true. But if the director could send that information, I would like just a quick snapshot of what we've been doing for public transit over the years, so I can share that with the community. And I don't know if other board members want to see that, but that would be very helpful for me. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Misinformation in the public?
I mean, come on.
What's this world coming to? Good. All right. I have nothing either. And so we're going to make this a real fast meeting. Anyone in the public wishing to comment? Okay. With that, probably the fastest meeting ever for RTC. We're adjourned.